President pushing back on claims of a slow response in Puerto Rico.
We are sending great people to help.
Focus on helping people. That should be the focus of the media, of the public.
We will come back stronger than ever.
The president quintupling down again on his focus on the anthem and the flag.
We look at our American flag that hangs in all of our factories. We love our American flag.
Tom Price has resigned as President Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary. Price was under fire for his use of private flights for government and personal business.
This is probably going to cause every cabinet official for the rest of the time that Donald Trump is in the White House to say, I better be really careful about this issue.
President Trump and Republican lawmakers say they're now focusing on their tax plan.
A giant, beautiful, massive, the biggest ever in our country, tax cut. And it will be rocket fuel for our economy.
I'm in a minute. Is this camera on? Is this camera on? Oh, it's on. Yeah, we've got that on
We
tape.
can debate that in the commercial.
Look what you made me do.
I do love some T Swift. It's just I don't know if the new one's good.
I love Taylor Swift, and I thought this new song, she always has hits, and when I heard it, I was very disappointed, which I think a lot of people were too. And it was
very emotional.
It was very nasty about people that used to be your friends or her enemies or whatever. And
still
drama.
angst? Yeah, you've got
A lot of
to
drama.
move on from the angst.
Speaking of drama, though, because there's drama in D.C. as well.
Yeah, Tom Price, he's out as Health and Human Services Secretary.
Price resigning Friday following the widespread criticism of his private plane trips, becoming the first Trump cabinet secretary to leave the administration.
Ellison Barber joins us live now from D.C. with those details. Ellison, good morning.
Good morning to all of you. After days of public scrutiny, apologies, and a promise to pay back at least some of the money he used to fly in private jets, HHS Secretary Tom Price becoming the first cabinet secretary of this administration to resign. Barely 2 weeks ago, Politico reported on Price's use of private planes. They said he traveled on private jets at least 24 times since May, and for most of those flights, other options were available, cheaper commercial options. The private flights cost taxpayers over $300,000. Price said he'd pay back the cost of his seat, a little over $51,000. But Politico found more questionable flights, with Price reportedly costing taxpayers $500,000 to fly overseas on a military aircraft.
But we have a very ambitious agenda, and we were trying our doggondest to be able to accomplish the mission, to make certain that we did all that we could do to advance the president's agenda, and clearly that we weren't sensitive to the taxpayer on these instances, which is why I've taken the actions that I've taken today.
And now former secretary, even though he says he's a good man.
Has Secretary Price offered to resign, sir?
No, but we'll see what happens later on.
Hours later, Price is out. The White House says he submitted a letter of resignation, and the president accepted it. Abby, Todd, Pete.
Yep, swift action.
Thank you, Ellison.
Ellison, thanks a lot. Well, we're going to bring in Corey Lewandowski, senior advisor and spokesman for America First Action and former Trump campaign manager, to react to this and other things. Good morning, Corey. So
hey,
Tom
Corey.
Price is out. Obviously, the private planes was problematic, and they moved swiftly on this. But did some of this also have to do with the fact that repeal and replace just never got over the edge in the Senate?
Well, I'm sure that's part of it, because you have to remember, under this administration, unlike the previous ones, when the president makes a campaign promise, he wants to see it fulfilled. And we have not seen the repeal and replace done. Tom Price was the point on that. But I don't think that's the reason that the repeal and replace not being repealed is the reason Tom Price is out. Tom Price is out because he wasted taxpayer money, and the president said it will not be tolerated. He spends taxpayer money like it is his own. We have seen him renegotiate things time and time again. And if a cabinet member or any other member of this administration is going to waste taxpayer money, they're not going to have a place in the government anymore.
All right, Corey, let's talk about tax reform, because that is on top of everyone's minds, including the president. Seeing him out there campaigning for tax reform, you feel the enthusiasm. This is something that he understands. This is something that he wants so badly to get done. We're already hearing criticism, though, from some Republicans, and including Peter King, about ending deductions for state and local income taxes. How do you see this playing out? Because the president's already made it clear, if Republicans can't get their act together and get this done, then I'm just going to go work with the Democrats.
Well, look, I like Pete King. I think he's a good man. He's done a good job representing the people of New York. But the number one priority of this administration has been and continues to be tax reform. It is something the campaign talked about, it is something the president-elect talked about, and it's something the president's talked about. We're taking 7 tax brackets. He's moving it down to 3. We're going to reduce the corporate tax from 35 down to 20, which puts us much more competitive in the global marketplace. We're going to ensure that the middle class actually gets a tax cut and a deduction. I'm going to simplify the tax code. And I understand those states that have big tax brackets so you can deduct your state and local taxes. Here in my great state of New Hampshire, we don't have an income tax. We don't have a sales tax. We lead the nation in that. But, you know, I understand where those big states are concerned. But look, here's the bottom line. You have to do what's right for the entire country. And what the president has said, and I firmly believe this, tax reform has to be accomplished quickly. And if it doesn't, I think you'll see serious repercussions at the ballot box for Republicans.
Agreed. Let me ask you this. Do you think President Trump will work across the aisle with Democrats if he doesn't get Republican help? People like Joe Manchin, who definitely have a sense as to more conservative leanings, if you will.
Well, it's not just Joe Manchin. I think he's one of many. You have to remember, you get Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota. You have a number of members in the Democratic Party who understand not only are they up for re-election next year, but more importantly, this is the right thing to do for America. This is going to turbocharge the economy. This is going to stop us from growing at 1% where we were in the Obama administration. We're already growing at 3.1, 3.2 in the last quarter. Once this tax cut goes into effect, we'll be growing at 4 and 5%. Means we're reducing our deficit. Means middle-class America has more money. Job creation. We're going to stimulate the economy. That's not good just for Republicans. Right. That's good for the country.
It's gotta
and that's
get
why
done.
I think you have to do this.
Yeah, there's
exactly
a lot
right.
of good stuff in there. They've got to turn the framework now into legislation. It's like making sausage. It's not pretty the way it's made, but hopefully they can come up with something.
Well, and Corey, it's not just Democrats that have been resisting this president. It's the establishment, to include establishment Republicans. And Rush Limbaugh had a theory on his radio show yesterday that we want to play. He said, you know, it's the establishment underneath it all that doesn't want him to succeed. Take a listen.
Trump would never be admitted in this club, no matter what he did. These guys have been running the country. It's donors, it's think tanks, it's the whole Washington media, the whole establishment. Trump's an outsider. They have been managing the country, ruling the country for however many decades. They can't afford for an outsider neophyte to come in and redo everything, fix things in 3 months, fix things in a year, show that it can be done, show that an outsider can do it, show that what they say can't be done can be done.
That was Rush Limbaugh on Sean Hannity's program. Do they want him to fail? And does that even include Republicans who could have done these things before?
Well, if you look at it, I think a number of the members of the Congress, whether those are senators or congressmen, think that they should be the president of the United States and not Donald Trump. A lot of them, as you remember during the campaign, didn't support the campaign. Donald Trump ran as the outsider, as the businessman who's going to come in and change Washington. And that's what he's doing. The American people are behind him, and that's the most important thing. And look, for 30 years, Washington, D.C. has lied to the American people. They told us everything was great, and all they've done is kick the can down the road. They've continued to increase our national debt. We haven't gotten the promises out of them that they've made, and now Donald Trump is holding them accountable. And what he said is, if Republicans, if you're not willing to do it, I will work across the aisle. I will get tax reform done. I will build a wall. It is what I have pledged to the American people, and that's what he's going to get done in this first term of the administration.
What happens when they need him a year from now in the 2018 elections, where a lot of those states where people are running in, the president is far better liked than they are? I mean, they're in a tough position.
Well, look, in Ohio alone right now, I just looked at the latest poll in Ohio. Donald Trump's favorability rating, at least amongst Republicans, is 87%. He outpaces everybody, including Governor Kasich, who's nowhere close. And as you look at a competitive cycle next year in Ohio for a U.S. Senate race with Sherrod Brown, who has been an obstacle to the president's agenda, you're going to see those Republican candidates asking Donald Trump to come in and campaign for him because he won Ohio by 9 points.
Yeah, they're going to want Air Force One landing right in their state with them.
You just wonder when they're going to wake up, Corey, and realize that good policy, doing what you say, is also good politics. I know the president understands that. Why the swamp can't figure that out, I have no idea. Corey, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Good to see you, Corey.
Thank you.
And enjoy those taxes in New Hampshire.
Or lack thereof.
Lack thereof, compared to here in New York. Awesome. All right, turning now to your headlines. A police officer, this is a sad one, murdered in an ambush. 29-year-old detective Kristen Hearn, seen right there, shot and killed while responding to a suspicious vehicle call in Georgia. This man and a woman coming out of the woods approaching the officers. The man opening fire, killing Detective Hearn and injuring the other officer, David Goodrich. Detective Hearn leaves behind a husband and a 3-year-old son. And it is a race against time as victims in Puerto Rico are struggling to survive. 1,400 more National Guard troops are now heading there this weekend, bringing the total to 6,000. The ravaged island bracing for another 1 to 3 inches of rain after being battered by 2 hurricanes already. The 101st Airborne Division are transporting medical teams to key hospitals in need. President Trump says big decisions will have to be made rebuilding that island.
We will have to really start all over again. We're literally starting from scratch.
The president is expected to visit Puerto Rico on Tuesday. And the NBA is giving all 30 teams an early warning: stand for the national anthem or face discipline. ESPN obtaining a league-wide memo saying there will be no exceptions to the already existing rule this season. And of course, this comes as the NFL deals with its own anthem protests. But the president, he's happy with this past Thursday's show of unity by the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears.
I heard everybody stood for the national anthem, and that shows respect for our country, our flag, and for the national anthem.
The president says he has talked to many NFL owners about the issue this week. He talked to you, Pete, about that earlier this week.
Absolutely. He's not doubling down, believes it's part of our civic culture. If you can't share the space of the anthem, then what else can you share? So critics may say it's a distraction. He believes it cuts to the core of what the problems are in this country.
Of who we are as Americans.
That's right.
It looks like he's winning this battle. All right, coming up, a race against time to help millions of people in Puerto Rico. Former Major League pitcher Curt Schilling is seeing the devastation firsthand. He joins us live next.
And if you kneel for the national anthem, you are getting benched. The superintendent of one school district is sending that message to students, and he is joining us live to tell us all about it. You don't want to miss it. That's ahead.
We've undertaken a massive federal mobilization to assist Puerto Rico. Virtually everything has been wiped out, and we will have to really start all over again. We're literally starting from scratch. We will not rest, however, until the people of Puerto Rico are safe.
President Trump vowing to help the people of Puerto Rico after the devastation from Hurricane Maria.
Former MLB pitcher Curt Schilling has seen the destruction firsthand and has been helping transport food and supplies across that island. And he joins us now with the very latest. Curt, you have seen it firsthand. Tell us what you've experienced.
You know what? I'm not really sure I can create the real picture, because I don't think I was prepared for the size and the scope. When we talk about devastation, these are on levels that I've never. I'm a student of military history. I've never seen anything like this. Looks like an atom bomb that didn't take the bodies. When the president says wiped out, the southeast part of the island is gone. And when I say gone, I don't mean that there are buildings down and people are hurt. I mean there are towns that are gone, and you're starting to see some really weird and awkward stuff happening here, from a kind of a breakdown in things. We're 8, 9 days post-storm. Last night we had 2 gentlemen that were in from a town in the mountains, a city of 46,000 people, that is blocked behind a mudslide, that has received, until yesterday, nothing. And seeing, I don't know why the media, I don't want to say blackout, but the stories that we've heard, people back in the States haven't heard. I know that there were 8 police officers buried here yesterday, and I don't think that story's made it out either.
Curt, you're there. You say that nothing's been done in certain places because it's really hard to reach them. You're there to do something, though. Tell us about why you're on the ground and what you're up to.
Well, same reason I was on the ground in Texas and Florida. These are Americans. If this was Texas, there'd be 55,000 soldiers sitting on this island right now. I have talked to politicians in both states, and also the governor of Puerto Rico, multiple people here. All have said, and this is just a very awkward media situation, all have said that the president did everything in a pace that they've never seen before, as far as him releasing money and releasing assets into these theaters. The execution on the ground has been horrifying in some cases. There are people, the soldiers, and I think some of the personnel are doing everything they can do, but there's something happening here from an outside looking in perspective that is just I've seen the best and worst of humanity in the last 48, 72 hours, and it's terrifying.
If people want to help through your organization and through what you're doing, how can they go about doing that?
We have an Operation Bullpen Facebook page where you can, we've organized about 45 or 50 semis nationwide to get food, water, and supplies to our places in Tampa and to participate in the air bridge down here. The challenge now is that yesterday at some point the airport was shut down. And we arrived here about 72, 96 hours ago. Multiple thousands of people at the airport, and apparently that number's only grown in the last 4 to 5 days. The only planes I saw leaving yesterday or flying in or out were private jets and a couple very large tankers that were coming and leaving. But the tankers that came in yesterday came in with people and not goods.
Kurt, you can hear the emotion in your voice. I can't imagine being there on the ground and seeing what so many of the people there are continuing to go through. Thank you for being with us and giving us your perspective this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And the president's going there, by the way, on Tuesday. He
Yes.
said this is something that is obviously very important to him. But as I said, being there on the ground to see this, I'm sure that will mean so much to the people in Puerto Rico, but also provide the president a whole new perspective, too, of what's gone on.
Absolutely. He's passionate about it. The governor there says he's responded to everything. But to Kurt Schilling's point, the challenge is once the rubber hits the road on the ground, when you don't have power and you don't have fuel and you don't have food and you don't have clean water, it becomes a societal breakdown thing. You need the basics, sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Addressing that can be even more challenging. So a lot of focus on Puerto Rico, and the president is going down there.
And that comment by him that we're in the middle of an ocean is not a joke. It's serious. That really does complicate the whole issue.
Yep, logistics. Yeah.
All right, First Lady Michelle Obama now attacking women who voted for President Trump, saying they voted against their own voice. Well, we have got a panel of moms here this morning. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this. We're going to debate it just
They're
ahead.
awesome. Talked to them in the green room before. And if you kneel for the national anthem, you are getting benched. The superintendent of one school district is sending that message to students. He joins us live next. "24 minutes after the hour now, and some quick headlines. ISIS is warning Muslims to stay home in advance of what they're calling imminent attacks. The terror group using social media to tell Muslims in the U.S. and other Western nations to stay away from public places, according to the encrypted message obtained by a Middle East media watchdog group. ISIS is encouraging any method of killing available. And the ACLU now fighting for an accused ISIS fighter. The organization writing a letter urging the Trump administration to protect the rights of the alleged terrorist by sending him to civilian court. The ACLU calling his detention, quote, unlawful. The suspect's identity has not been released. Over to you, Pete.
Thanks, Todd. Well, the NFL anthem protests sparking new rules for high school sports. Now, some student athletes in Louisiana and members of school clubs are getting a directive to stand for the national anthem or face consequences. But some groups are opposed to the move. Joining us now via Skype is Scott Smith. He's the superintendent of Bossier Parish School System. He, along with some school principals, other school principals, came up with the directive. Scott, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So for a lot of patriotic Americans across the country, this is a breath of fresh air. A superintendent saying, hey, if you're going to be in my school district, you're going to stand for the national anthem. Where did this come from?
Well, thank you, and I appreciate being here. Actually, it's been a topic of conversation, as you know, over the past several days, the past week and a half. We've been receiving some questions from our local media about what would we do in Bossier Parish concerning this situation. And so that led to us sending out a press release requiring our student athletes and those in other organizations that are voluntary to stand for our national anthem.
Now, you're a public school, and so this statement has drawn, of course, predictably, criticism from the highest of quarters, including the ACLU. They said this. They tweeted this yesterday saying, the Supreme Court ruled that students don't have to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. That goes for the national anthem on the ball field as well. So what do you say to the ACLU when you say, no, you can't tell kids, young student athletes, that they should respect their country?
Well, we disagree with that. We believe that when a student is involved in an extracurricular activity that is not required by the school, and football, baseball, basketball, tennis, any other sport, any other extracurricular organization is strictly voluntary, And we believe that if we have a set of rules, policies, or directives, that they follow that. And if they can't do that, they simply don't have to be a part of that organization.
Scott,
we certainly understand.
Well, that makes sense to me. You can't volunteer whether you go to school or not, but you do get to choose if you play a sport or not. So to other superintendents out, this seems like a layup. This makes sense. Why are we not seeing as many other superintendents take this kind of a stance?
Well, it's just really amazing to me. Never in my wildest imagination would I have thought that actually requiring our student athletes to stand for something so reverent as our national anthem would be a national issue.
What does it say about our country, sir? What does it say about our country right now?
It's almost saddening, to be honest with you, because we need to understand that within the boundaries of Bossier Parish, we have Barksdale Air Force Base. We have the 2nd Bomb Wing, the mighty 8th Air Force, and Global Strike Command. We have many veterans that live in our community, and it's a very patriotic area. And we stand, for that flag. We stand for our country. We stand for our veterans. It's sometimes I don't feel like we're very close to this situation. We almost feel like that we're in an iron bubble, but yet it can be penetrated. We've had so many people that have come back that are close by, that have come back without arms. They've come back without legs, even in caskets, and they certainly can't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's such we have to realize that these people over there, some of them making just $30,000 to $40,000 a year, are there protecting the very liberties that we have over here that we seem to take for granted. If someone felt that whizzing of that bullet by their head, if they saw their family members come in without an arm or a limb, I think that they may be singing a different tune, and it may sound a lot like the national anthem.
So well said. I've heard that whizzing of a bullet on a battlefield myself, and I can tell you, your words are powerful. The kids of Bossier Parish are fortunate to have you as their superintendent. Scott Smith, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Well, a disgusting new attack on patriotism after someone walked right up to a neighbor's front door and set their American flag on fire. Amazing. And First Lady Michelle Obama now attacking all women, that's all of you, who voted for President Trump, saying you voted against your own voice if you're a woman who supported Trump.
Well, this week, former First Lady Michelle Obama slammed females who voted for President Trump, saying this: any woman who voted against Hillary Clinton voted against their own voice. What does it mean for us as women that we look at those two candidates as women? And many of us said, that guy, he's better for me. His voice is more true to me. Well, that to me, that just says you don't like your voice. You like the thing you are told to like. A lot to unravel there. Here to react, our panel of politically active moms. So thrilled to have all of you here. Different backgrounds, different perspectives, and most importantly, all moms. Just quickly, can any of you raise your hand that voted for President Trump? Oh, a few of you. Okay, Kim, I'll start with you. You're a mother of one. Do you feel like that vote was against your own voice?
I'm a political consultant, and I tell every single woman that I work with, if you're running because you're a woman, you're going to lose. And I tell every guy that I work with, if you're running against a woman, that it's equally as loony to try to portray them on that. The bottom line is it's the issues. I'm a mom, but I'm also a business owner. I'm a Republican, but I have lots of interest in getting my taxes cut and a better economy and good schools for my daughter. And that's what matters to me, not that there's a woman that Madeleine Albright decided to, scold women when she was helping Hillary Clinton. If anybody knows women, they realize they don't like to be scolded.
No, and they also don't like to be told what to do. That is for sure. Kathy, part of it that got me was when she says, you know, for women who said Trump is better for me, you like the thing that you are told to like, basically saying that anyone who voted for Trump, they were told to do that.
Yeah.
What's your response?
You know, apparently the left still does not get it. This election has never been about ovaries. I said it then, and I continue to say it today.
Thank you.
As women, we can speak beyond our uteruses. And what this election was about then, and it continues to be about today, is what kind of America do we want? And by extension, what kind of world do we want to live in and raise up the next generation? President Trump and Hillary Clinton were offering two completely different versions of America. And just within the last 9 months, we faced some very formidable challenges, from Syria gassing its own people to North Korea's nuclear ambitions to injecting growth, porous borders, and the list goes on. And none of those issues are women issues. They are American issues. And that is how I voted.
Yeah. Keisha, I see you have a lot you want to say there.
Yes, well, first of all, I agree with Michelle Obama. I believe that having a voice is very important, and unfortunately, a lot of women do not even recognize their voice. I'm raising a daughter who's 14 years old, and if you ask her right now, what do you have? She'll say a voice. Why would any woman feel that a man who objectifies women, who says that it's okay to grab a woman by her genitalia, want that person to be their leader? So it is important. It's about equality, and females have to have the same opportunities as males. And I feel like if a president does not value a woman like he values a man, we're losing in that ability to have equal opportunity.
All right, Dr. Jeanine, I want to get you in here because you didn't support Trump necessarily, but you have an interesting perspective.
Yeah, so I'm a proud Hillary supporter, and I did not vote for Trump, but yet I see a lot of Republican women in my practice. And
what do they tell you?
What Michelle Obama was saying, they want their own voice. So they do want their own voice. They want equal pay. They want access to birth control. Many of them quietly want access to abortion, that type of thing. So I tend to agree with what Michelle Obama said, but then I see my Republican patients' point of view about how they want some things, but not other things. A lot of them are very, very, very concerned about their taxes. I tend not to be a one-issue voter, so I'm looking at the broad strokes of everything.
And I imagine they're very independent thinkers on their own. Jeanine, I want to get you in here. Interesting when you hear these comments and you think about, 8 years ago, and Michelle Obama's husband was running against Hillary Clinton at the time. I imagine at that point, who knows who she voted for, but I would guess it was for not Hillary Clinton, it was for her husband.
Oh, I'm sure she did. But listen, Abby, elections are about policies, and identity politics is always playing a role for some reason. People think that because you're black, you're supposed to vote Democrat. Because you're a woman, you're supposed to vote for a woman. It's about policies. And I think Michelle Obama has insulted over 40% of the women who did vote for President Trump. I find her comments were very condescending. Americans, women, men, we are concerned about the forgotten men and women. We want lower taxes. We want good national security, immigration reform. Those are the issues that Americans voted for in favor of President Trump.
And issues that moms, Beth, care about more than anything. They care about their kids. They care about their grandkids and their future.
Correct. And I think what's important, too, to remember is what she said. How about the hypocrisy? The left, they're always advocating for gender neutrality. And yet we're supposed to vote by gender. If you continued on and listened to what she actually spoke at the convention, she also referred to herself as the former first spouse, instead of referring to herself as the former first lady. She wanted to get it out there that, she is gender neutral and that's important, and that's going to be, so to speak, the wave of the future. And it's so hypocritical. And I think, frankly, that most women that heard her statement, they understand that this is just another hypocritical thing from the left, and it's double standard.
Becca?
Well, I admire Michelle Obama as a mom, but the days of Stalinist feminism are over, and I wouldn't presume to speak about her voice. Abby, this week, a woman graduated from the basic school at Quantico. She's the first Marine qualified to lead an infantry platoon. And
How powerful is that?
It's just so great.
Action speaks so much louder than any words ever could.
Right, and we don't know her name, and I sure don't know her voice. I would never presume to speak for that young woman, that officer's voice. And I think we should all have our own voices.
Amen. Amen. Well, I'm going to give you the last word here, Jeannie.
Yeah, well, you know, I think we all have to take a step back and say this is Michelle Obama. Of course, she's a Democrat. She is going to say she opposes Donald Trump and that we all should. So I don't see anything shocking about what she said. I think we have to go back to the issue of policy. It has been 9 months. What policies has President Trump put forward to benefit women? That's the question, and to benefit all of us. And you can look down the line at some of these policies, including the inability of Republicans to repeal and replace Obamacare, has a huge impact on women. And so there is a policy perspective here that we have to look at, and that's missing when we have conversations. And that's why I didn't want Michelle Obama to come out, because it clouds a really important message about policy, because she's so close, obviously, to the Democratic Party.
Well, some great opinions here. I think everyone agrees, regardless of your background, that policy is most important, far more important than politics will ever be. Ladies, thank you so much. I think most of you will be back here in the next 2 hours, so we'll see you then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, President Trump doubling his efforts to help hurricane-ravaged Puerto Rico. Our own Geraldo Rivero is on the ground, seeing the crisis unfold firsthand. He's going to join us live to tell us what he's seen. And the NFL kneeling controversy started as a protest about police brutality, but do the numbers back that up? Our next guest takes a closer look at the real issue they are all ignoring. More on that next. And we are back with a Fox News alert. Puerto Rico is bracing for more rain as hurricane recovery efforts are still underway. President Trump sending 1,400 additional National Guard troops this weekend, bringing the total to 6,000.
The 101st Airborne Division also on the island, transporting medical items to key hospitals in need. Rick Reichmuth is keeping an eye on the weather in that area. Rick, what can they expect?
Yeah, so there's more rain coming this weekend. Keep in mind, we're still in hurricane season. It goes to the end of November. That means just that environmental conditions are generally favorable for tropical weather. Take a look at this. We've got a lot of storms right across this eastern part of the Caribbean. And here's Puerto Rico. All of this, where you see this cloud cover right there, that's moisture that's moving in towards the Puerto Rico area. Probably we'll see kind of a widespread 1 to 2 inches, but a few spots, maybe some isolated 4 to 6 inches of rain. That'll cause some localized flooding. But keep in mind, because everything is so saturated, the ground is saturated, a lot of the reservoirs are completely full or busting out of their banks. This is going to cause some problems, as well as they're trying to get in to bring any kind of relief efforts. Want to tell you also, there's another system we're watching that's off the coast of Florida. Potential for some little kind of tropical development here. I don't think we're going to see anything that would be a very strong storm. What we will see is over the next number of days, a lot of moisture coming in here, especially in towards North Florida, up around the Jacksonville area. We could be seeing some spots, maybe 6 to 8 inches of rain as well. So that's certainly problematic, guys.
Understood. Rick, thank you.
Rick. Pete, let's toss it over to you.
Thanks, guys. Well, you've seen the NFL anthem protests. Some players say they're taking a knee to try and raise awareness about police violence against black men. But our next guest says these protests are ignoring the ground truth. The author of The War on Cops, Heather McDonald, joins us now. She's also a fellow at the Manhattan Institute and just wrote an op-ed on this topic in the New York Post that caught our eye. Heather, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
So you say the real story here is there's a different story to be told about black homicide rates.
It's the opposite story than the public thinks it knows from Black Lives Matter. The greatest safety that comes to blacks is from the police. And the police now are backing off thanks to the Black Lives Matter protests, and black lives are being taken by criminals, not the police.
You call it the Ferguson effect. What do you mean by that?
Well, after the Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri in August 2014, a narrative took hold of the national mainstream media that said we're living through an epidemic of racially biased police shootings of blacks, and there was incessant attacks on the police. Cops backed off of the type of discretionary, proactive policing that prevents crime under this incessant accusation that they were racist, and criminals became emboldened. Since 2014, there's been a 20% increase in our homicide rate. An additional 900 black males were killed in 2015 compared to the previous year, and last year another additional 900 black males were killed.
And as is always the case with the work that you do, the stats back this up. Pew Research released this in January, saying, to your point, 72% of the nation's officers are less willing to stop and question suspicious person. So you're saying maybe it's 2 a.m. on a street corner. Normally a cop would say, hey, why are you loitering here at 2 a.m. on a street corner? Now they might just drive by.
And that's purely discretionary. The cops continue to run to 911 calls with alacrity, but the things that make criminals actually not engage in crime, they don't have to do that. And when the elites are telling them they're racist for doing so, of course they're going to get the message. And the victims are the law-abiding residents of high-crime areas who beg for more police protection.
There's also this narrative that it's always unarmed black men. The Washington Post put out some statistics about 2016 saying this: the police fatally shot 233 blacks, majority armed and dangerous. The paper categorized only 16 of those 233 as unarmed. So is this idea that it's just that we're gunning down unarmed black men as opposed to, hey, a police officer walks into a uncertain situation where there may or may not be a weapon and has to make a last-minute call?
Even those unarmed cases are often somebody's trying to grab an officer's gun. That's 16 allegedly unarmed. Let's really take that with a grain of salt. Out of nearly 8,000 black deaths by black criminals. In fact, a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a cop.